He did not remember when the light left his world. Perhaps it happened slowly, fading like a dying flame, or perhaps it vanished all at once, torn away in a single cruel moment. But he remembered the silence that followed. It was not the silence of peace, but of abandonment. The world had turned its back on him. Those who once cheered his victories now spoke his name with scorn. They said he was finished, broken beyond repair, a relic of a past that no longer mattered. But deep within the darkness, where no hope remained, something ancient stirred inside him, a force that had been waiting, watching, ready to awaken. He knelt upon the cold ground, his body battered, his spirit torn. Every breath was a battle. Every heartbeat echoed with the pain of memories he wished he could forget. He had given everything to those who betrayed him, his strength, his loyalty, his sacrifice. And in return, they left him to die. Yet even as his hands trembled and his vision clouded, he refused to collapse. Pain was not his enemy. Pain was proof that he was alive. And as long as life remained within him, even in its weakest form, his story was not over. A storm gathered in the sky above, but he did not fear it. He welcomed the thunder, the wind, the darkness that enveloped the world. For he understood a truth that others have forgotten: only in darkness can true power be forged. The light teaches comfort. The darkness teaches survival. And he had no interest in comfort ever again. The time for peace was over. The time for rebirth had come. He rose from the earth like a forgotten god awakening from an age-long sleep. His wounds still bled, but he did not hide them. Each scar was a reminder of the lies he had believed, the false promises he had followed. They were symbols not of defeat, but of rebirth. He walked through the wasteland of his past, every step echoing across the silent horizon. With each breath he took, the darkness began to gather around him, not as a curse, but as a cloak, wrapping him in its embrace. Voices whispered through the air, voices of those who had mocked him, doubted him, tried to bury him. Their words once brought him pain. Now they brought him strength. For he had realized something powerful: those who doubt you are not your downfall, they are your fuel. Every lie told about him, every doubt spoken in hushed tones, every cheer at his fall, all of it had been collected and forged into the fire of his becoming. He reached a desolate cliff and gazed out upon the kingdoms that had once bowed to him. They believed he was gone. They celebrated his silence as surrender. But what they saw as silence was preparation. What they called death was transformation. He closed his eyes, feeling the power rise from the core of his being, a force that no longer obeyed the limits of man. The sky darkened. The earth trembled at his presence. The world itself seemed to hold its breath. From below the mountains, shadows moved. Not creatures, not spirits, but embodiments of will, his will. They rose because he rose. They existed because he refused to end. As he walked down the path toward destiny, the very air around him shifted. Trees bowed. Winds knelt. Even the stars seemed to dim before his awakening. For he no longer walked as a man, but as a force carved by agony and reborn in absolute purpose. He passed through the ruins of his past kingdom, where broken stones still echoed with memories. He saw the shattered remnants of his throne, the banners burned to ash, the walls carved with scars of betrayal. Once, this sight would have filled him with sorrow. Now, it filled him with resolve. For he had learned the greatest truth: true strength does not come from what you build, but from what you endure. It is not the throne that makes the king. It is the fire he walks through to reclaim it. As night fell across the land, a cold silence descended. Villagers woke from nightmares with hearts rattling in terror, though none knew why. Animals hid. Winds stilled. The world sensed a presence it could not name, a return it could not comprehend. Something ancient was rising again, not for vengeance, but for destiny. And destiny does not whisper. It roars. He stood upon the gates of the world that had forgotten him, his eyes glowing not with rage, but with truth. The guards trembled, unable to draw their blades. They did not see a man standing before them. They saw the embodiment of fate, the shadow of every fallen warrior, every broken soul who had refused to remain on their knees. He did not speak. Words were no longer necessary. The earth spoke for him. The wind carried his rise. The darkness announced his coming with a silence louder than thunder. He stepped forward, and the gates shattered, not from force, but from destiny acknowledging its rightful master. The ground ignited beneath his feet, flames rising not to consume him, but to honor him. He walked through the city without resistance. Every man and woman who met his eyes felt their will break, not from fear alone, but from truth. They saw in him the reflection of what they had tried to bury within themselves, the fire that is born in pain, the strength that comes from suffering, the unstoppable force that rises when the world believes you are broken. He stood where his throne once was, now nothing but dust beneath the moonlight. He did not need its stones. His throne was not made of metal or gold. His throne was made of will. A will that no force on earth could bend. He placed his hand upon the ground, and shadows erupted across the horizon, spreading like a great tide returning to its master. His voice rose, not in a shout, but in a whisper that echoed through the hearts of every living being. I am not what I was. I am what pain has made me. And what pain creates cannot be destroyed. And with that, the world began to change. For a new age had dawned, not of light, not of peace, but of truth. And truth, once awakened, cannot be silenced. He had risen, not to take back what was lost, but to claim what was always destined to be his. His era had begun.